Berlin, November 1943. The Gestapo headquarters on Prince Albrechtstrasse, the most feared address in Nazi Germany. In a third-floor interrogation room, a British SOE agent sat across from Sturmbannführer Klaus Richter, one of the Gestapo's most effective counterintelligence officers. The agent's cover was blown. His network was compromised. He had perhaps 30 minutes before the torture began. Richter smiled, the predatory smile of a man who knew he'd won. "You will tell us everything," he said in perfect English, sliding a notepad and pen across the table. "Why delay the inevitable? Write down the names of your contacts." The agent looked at the notepad, then at Richter. His hands were unbound, standard procedure during voluntary confessions. The Gestapo believed a cooperative prisoner didn't need restraints. The two guards at the door watched casually, bored by yet another broken spy. The agent reached into his jacket pocket slowly, carefully. The guards tensed but didn't move. He was reaching for his own pen, not theirs. A personal touch for a confession. How civilized. He pulled out a black fountain pen. Standard issue, unremarkable. The kind any businessman or government clerk might carry. He uncapped it, held it over the notepad as if preparing to write, then looked directly at Richter. "You're right," the agent said quietly. He pointed the pen at Richter's face and pressed the clip. A sharp crack, not loud, barely louder than a book slamming, and Richter's head snapped backward. A small hole appeared just above his left eye. He slumped in his chair, dead before his brain could process what had happened. And that second was all the agent needed. He was already moving, diving through the window behind him, crashing through glass into the courtyard 3 floors below. He landed in a truck bed full of coal, painful but survivable, and rolled into the streets of Berlin as alarms began to wail behind him. The Gestapo searched for him for 3 weeks. They never found him. But they found his fountain pen in the interrogation room, and when their technical experts analyzed it, they discovered something that would haunt German intelligence for the rest of the war. The British had created a fully functional pistol disguised as a writing instrument. And if a fountain pen could be a gun, what else could the British weaponize? Let's rewind to 1942. The Special Operations Executive had agents operating in the deepest cover imaginable, false identities in Nazi Germany itself, in occupied capitals, in government offices and military installations. These agents couldn't carry conventional weapons. A well-rod pistol, despite its effectiveness, was still obviously a firearm. Even a sleeve gun required specific mounting and raised questions if discovered. What the SOE needed was a weapon so perfectly disguised that even if German security searched an agent's pockets and examined the contents, they'd see nothing suspicious. A weapon that looked, felt, and functioned exactly like an everyday object until the moment it became lethal. The fountain pen was the perfect candidate. In the 1940s, fountain pens were ubiquitous among educated professionals, businessmen, government clerks, journalists, diplomats. Carrying one was not just normal, it was expected. A businessman without a fountain pen would be more suspicious than one with a pen. But could you actually fit a functional firearm inside something the size of a fountain pen? The engineering challenge was immense. A fountain pen measured roughly 13 to 14 centimeters long and just over 1 centimeter in diameter. Inside that impossibly small space, you had to fit a barrel, firing mechanism, ammunition, and trigger, all while maintaining the external appearance and even partial functionality of a real pen. Station Ikes took on the challenge, and what they created was one of the most elegant and terrifying concealed weapons ever designed. And for German counterintelligence officers, the knowledge that any pen could be a gun transformed every interrogation, every search, every encounter with a suspected agent into a potential death sentence. But how did British engineers pack a lethal weapon into something you could write with? The pen pistol represented the absolute pinnacle of miniaturization in firearms engineering. Every component had to serve dual purposes, appearing as fountain pen parts while actually being gun components. The external body was a genuine fountain pen barrel, typically made of hard black rubber or early plastic materials common in 1940s pens. To casual inspection, even close inspection, it looked exactly like a Parker, Waterman, or similar high-quality fountain pen of the era. The clip, cap, and barrel bands were all present and functional. The barrel and chamber were ingeniously integrated. The fountain pen's internal ink reservoir tube was replaced with a steel barrel approximately 8 centimeters long, rifled for accuracy. 22 short ammunition, the smallest practical cartridge, with just enough power to be lethal at contact range. 22 short because it was the only cartridge that fit, 5 millimeters in diameter. 32 ACP simply wouldn't fit inside the pen's dimensions while leaving room for the firing mechanism. The firing mechanism was a masterpiece of miniature engineering. A spring-loaded striker pin ran through the center of the barrel, held cocked by a catch mechanism. The pen's external clip, the part you'd hook over a shirt pocket, served as the trigger, firing the 22 cartridge's rim. But here's what made the design brilliant. The pen actually worked as a pen. The top 2/3 of the device contained a functional ink reservoir and nib. You could write with it. You could sign documents, take notes, do everything a normal fountain pen did. Only the bottom third, hidden inside the barrel when the cap was on, contained the firing mechanism. This meant an agent could use the pen normally during daily activities, even in front of German security. The deception was so complete that some agents reportedly forgot they were carrying a weapon until they needed it. You won't believe how Station I-9 tested these weapons to ensure they'd pass even the most thorough searches. Station I-9 produced multiple variants of the pen pistol, each iteration improving on the previous design based on field feedback and operational requirements. Mark I, 1942. The first production model, 22 short, clip trigger. Relatively crude, the pen wrote poorly and the trigger pressure required was so heavy that some agents couldn't fire it without using both hands. Several Mark I weapons malfunctioned in the field, either failing to fire or accidentally discharging when the clip was pressed too hard during normal pocket placement. Mark II, 1943. Refined design with improved writing functionality and a more reliable firing mechanism. The trigger pressure was adjusted, still requiring deliberate force, but achievable with one hand. The ink reservoir was enlarged, allowing the pen to write for longer periods without refilling, enhancing the disguise. This became the standard production model. Mark III, 1944. Featured an improved safety mechanism. Earlier models had no safety beyond the heavy trigger pull, leading to accidental discharges. The Mark III included a small rotating collar near the clip that had to be turned to the armed position before the clip trigger would function. This collar was disguised as a decorative barrel band. Executive variant. A special production run using actual high-end Parker fountain pen bodies, complete with gold-plated trim and superior writing nibs. These were issued to agents operating in high-level business or diplomatic circles, where carrying an expensive pen was expected, and carrying a cheap pen would raise suspicions. 22 short rounds, fired by pressing the clip twice. Only a handful were produced. The mechanism was too complex and prone to jamming. The project was abandoned in favor of the reliable single-shot design. Production numbers remain classified, but estimates suggest between 500 and 1,000 pen pistols were manufactured during the war. These weren't mass-produced weapons. They were precision instruments, each hand-assembled and individually tested. Testing procedures were rigorous. Each pen had to pass a writing test, produce legible text for at least one full page. Then a penetration test, fire into ballistic gelatin to confirm lethal capability. Then a reliability test, survive being dropped from various heights, shaken vigorously, exposed to temperature extremes, and still fire reliably. Only about 70% of manufactured units passed all tests. The remainder were destroyed or relegated to training use with inert cartridges. SOE training facilities developed specialized courses for pen-pistol operations. Unlike conventional firearms training, this focused on ultra-close-quarters combat and the psychology of last-resort weaponry. Drawing and presentation. Agents practice retrieving the pen from jacket pockets, shirt pockets, and desk drawers in fluid, natural motions that didn't telegraph hostile intent. The key was making the draw look like you were reaching for a pen to write, not reaching for a weapon to shoot. 22 short cartridge. Relatively weak by firearm standards, shot placement was absolutely critical. Instructors drilled agents on target zones, eye sockets, temple, base of skull, throat. These were the only reliably lethal targets for such a small caliber at the contact ranges where the pen pistol would be used. Contact shooting. The pen pistol was designed for contact shots, literally pressing the barrel against the target before firing. 22 short was deadly with proper placement. Agents practice positioning during handshakes, reaching across tables, the moment of distraction before execution. Post-shot actions. Unlike larger weapons that might disable multiple targets, the pen pistol gave you one kill and then you were disarmed. Training emphasized immediate follow-up actions. Do you run, fight hand-to-hand, grab a weapon from the person you just shot? Every scenario required split-second decisions. Psychological preparation. This was perhaps the most challenging training component. Using a pen pistol meant killing someone at intimate range, close enough to see their eyes, feel their breath, watch them die. Some trainees couldn't overcome the psychological barrier of that intimacy. Those who failed this portion were never issued pen pistols, though they might receive other weapons. Instructors used a stark phrase during training. The pen pistol is not for fighting. It's for killing one specific person at one specific moment when you have no other option. It's not a weapon of war. Some trainees found this distinction disturbing. Others found it clarifying. Understanding the weapon's purpose made it easier to prepare mentally for its use. Documenting pen pistol operations is nearly impossible. These weapons were used in the most clandestine circumstances, often with no witnesses surviving to report. But declassified files reveal fragmentary accounts of their employment. The Prague assassination, 1943. An SOE agent codenamed Martin was cornered during a meeting with resistance contacts. Gestapo burst into the apartment. Martin's conventional weapons, a well rod and plastic explosives, were hidden in a dead drop miles away. His only weapon was the pen pistol in his jacket. As Gestapo agents grabbed him, he managed to draw the pen and fire into the face of the nearest officer. The shock and confusion gave him seconds to break free and escape through a window. The operation failed, but Martin survived, specifically because he had a weapon no one expected. The train interrogation, 1944. A female SOE agent traveling under false papers was questioned by German military police on a train to Vienna. Her cover story was solid, but one officer remained suspicious and demanded she accompany him to the baggage car for further questioning, away from witnesses where harsher interrogation methods could be used. In the baggage car, as the officer reached for handcuffs, the agent drew her pen pistol and shot him through the eye. She pushed his body into a luggage compartment, cleaned the blood, and returned to her seat. The body wasn't discovered until the train reached Vienna, by which time she'd vanished into the city. The failed escape, 1943. A captured agent, held in a French prison controlled by Vichy authorities, managed to conceal his pen pistol during initial searches. It passed inspection as an ordinary pen. When guards brought him to an interrogation room, he attempted to shoot his way out. He killed one guard, but the pen pistol misfired on a second shot attempt. It was designed for only one shot, and he'd somehow managed to chamber a second round incorrectly. He was subdued and executed the following day. These fragmentary accounts share common elements. The pen pistol was used when everything else had failed, when the agent was already compromised, when it was literally the last option before death or torture. But the weapon's greatest impact wasn't the confirmed kills. It was the psychological effect on German counterintelligence. By late 1943, the Gestapo and SS Intelligence Service were aware of British pen pistols. They'd captured at least 3 examples, 1 from a dead agent, 2 from arrests where the agents hadn't had time to use the weapons. German technical experts analyzed the devices and distributed warnings throughout their counterintelligence networks. The warnings created immediate paranoia. Internal Gestapo memos from 1943 to 44 instructed interrogators to confiscate all pens from suspects immediately upon detention. This sounds simple, but it created practical problems. Where do you store dozens of confiscated pens? How do you track which pen belonged to which prisoner? German efficiency demanded documentation, but documenting potentially weaponized pens consumed time and resources. Use tongs or forceps. This made sense theoretically, but was impractical. You can't efficiently search someone while using tongs for every object you examine. Examine pens for weapon characteristics. But what characteristics? The British pens looked exactly like real pens. Some Gestapo guidelines suggested excessive weight or unusual clip resistance, but these indicators were vague and led to countless false positives. Destroy all pens after examination. This prevented suspects from reclaiming potential weapons, but also destroyed evidence and created supply problems. Prisoners needed pens for written confessions, and the Gestapo was now destroying pens faster than they could replace them. The psychological impact rippled through German counterintelligence. Some interrogators refused to be in rooms with any pens present. Others insisted on searching suspects multiple times, obsessively examining every item. This slowed interrogations, degraded efficiency, and introduced an element of fear into what should have been controlled environments. One Gestapo officer's report, captured after the war, noted, "The British pen weapon has achieved what no conventional weapon could. It has made us fear the mundane. Every pen is now suspicious. Every writing instrument must be examined." The Germans even developed specialized equipment, small portable X-ray devices intended to reveal hidden mechanisms inside pens without disassembling them. These were expensive, rare, and largely ineffective. The pen pistol's components were too small to clearly image with 1940s X-ray technology. But what if you wanted to use a pen pistol against the absolute highest value targets? Station Ike designed the pen pistol partly for defensive use, agents protecting themselves when captured. But SOE planners also envisioned offensive applications, assassinating high-ranking Nazi officials using weapons so innocuous that they could pass the most rigorous security. Several assassination plans involved pen pistols, though most were never executed. Operation Foxley, Hitler assassination. Among the numerous schemes to kill Hitler, one involved an agent posing as a staff officer getting close enough during a document signing ceremony to use a pen pistol. The plan was rejected, not because it was impossible, but because security around Hitler made even approaching him with a pen unlikely. Hitler rarely signed documents in the presence of anyone he didn't know personally. Heydrich alternative. After Reinhard Heydrich's successful assassination in Prague using conventional weapons, grenades and guns, SOE planners considered whether a pen pistol approach might have worked. The conclusion? Possibly, but the explosive attack had achieved multiple strategic goals: public demonstration of resistance, proof that high-ranking Nazis were vulnerable, that a quiet pen pistol assassination couldn't match. Gestapo headquarters infiltration. Multiple plans involved agents inside Gestapo administrative offices where they'd use pen pistols to eliminate interrogators and intelligence officers. A few of these operations were attempted. Success rates are unknown. Agents deployed on such missions rarely survived to file reports. The fantasy of pen pistol assassinations, walking into Hitler's office and shooting him with a writing instrument, was just that, fantasy. The weapon's limitations made it unsuitable for planned assassinations of heavily guarded targets. Its true value was in unplanned, desperate situations where no other weapon could be present. But the Germans didn't know that. To them, the pen pistol represented a threat that could reach anywhere, strike anyone, bypass any security. That fear had strategic value even if the reality was more limited. The pen pistol, for all its clever engineering, had severe limitations that made it one of the most dangerous weapons for the user to carry. Single shot. You got one chance. Miss, and you were effectively disarmed. Misfire, which happened in approximately 10 to 15% of field uses, and you were holding an empty tube against armed enemies. 22 short was minimally lethal. Even with perfect shot placement, targets sometimes survived long enough to raise alarms or fight back. Several documented cases exist of pen pistol victims surviving the initial shot and living long enough to identify their attacker. Close range requirement. The pen pistol was accurate only at contact range, literally touching or within inches of the target. Any further, and accuracy became pure chance. This meant exposing yourself to immediate retaliation if the shot failed. Fragile mechanism. The miniaturized firing mechanism was prone to jamming if the weapon was damaged, improperly maintained, or exposed to extreme conditions. Several agents reported their pen pistols failing to fire during critical moments, forcing them to rely on other escape methods. No reload. Unlike the well rod, which could be reloaded with some time and preparation, the pen pistol required complete disassembly to reload, a process taking several minutes with proper tools. In the field, once fired, the pen pistol became a useless metal tube. 22 cartridge produced flash and smoke. In enclosed spaces, firing a pen pistol created visible evidence that lasted several seconds. Any witnesses would know immediately that the pen was actually a weapon. Legal consequences. Possession of a pen pistol eliminated any possibility of being treated as a prisoner of war under Geneva Conventions. The weapon was undeniably a disguised assassination tool. Captured agents with pen pistols were tortured for intelligence, then executed. No trials, no prisoner exchanges, no mercy. Despite these limitations, the SOE continued producing pen pistols throughout the war because they filled a crucial niche. They gave agents a last resort option when literally no other weapon could be carried. After 1945, most pen pistols were destroyed or secured in classified storage. Their existence remained secret for decades. Agents who'd carried them couldn't discuss them, and official records were heavily redacted or destroyed. The weapon influenced Cold War-era development of similar devices. Both the CIA and KGB created concealed firearms disguised as everyday objects. CIA developments. The agency created pen guns, cigarette guns, and even belt-buckle guns based on SOE principles. Most remained experimental, but some saw operational use during the 1950s-60s. Details remain classified. 5mm single-shot weapon disguised as cosmetics. This was likely influenced by captured SOE pen pistols and technical intelligence gathered from British sources. Commercial exploitation. In the 1960s-70s, some gun manufacturers created legal pen guns marketed to civilians for self-defense. Most were quickly banned due to their concealed nature and association with assassination rather than self-defense. Today, surviving SOE pen pistols are extremely rare. The Imperial War Museum in London displays one example in their SOE collection. The CIA Museum, not open to public, reportedly holds several British and American variants. Private collectors occasionally acquire examples, though ownership is heavily restricted in most countries. The pen pistol appears in popular culture. James Bond's various gadget weapons owe clear debt to SOE innovations. But films and novels typically exaggerate the weapon's capabilities, showing them as reliably lethal precision instruments rather than desperate last-resort devices. Modern security screening, metal detectors, X-ray scanners would easily detect pen pistols, making them obsolete for their original purpose. But in the 1940s, when security meant physical searches by human hands, the pen pistol represented the cutting edge of concealed weaponry. Behind every pen pistol carried was an agent who knew they might need to use it, and knew that using it probably meant they'd been compromised, captured, or cornered. The weapon was literally a symbol of failure. Veterans who carried pen pistols, those who survived to speak about them decades later, described a peculiar psychological burden. One former SOE agent, interviewed in the 1980s, said, "Every time I reached for that pen to actually write something, there was a moment of uncertainty. Would I accidentally press too hard on the clip? Would it fire? I'd check compulsively. Is the safety collar in the right position? Is the cap fully secured?" Another agent described the moment he realized he might need to use his pen pistol. "I was being questioned, and I could see the suspicion growing in the interrogator's eyes. I put my hand in my jacket pocket, felt the pen, and thought, this is it. This is how I die. Either I shoot this man and they kill me, or I don't shoot him and he tortures me until I talk, then they kill me. There was no good outcome." He didn't use the weapon. The interrogation ended before reaching that point. But the psychological preparation for using it, the acceptance of inevitable death, stayed with him for life. The Germans who died to pen pistols, interrogators, guards, officers, were doing their jobs in a war. Some were fanatic Nazis. Others were career policemen who joined the Gestapo for practical reasons. The pen pistol didn't distinguish. It killed whoever was close enough when the agent decided there was no other choice. This intimate, personal nature of pen pistol killing, looking someone in the eye and shooting them with a fountain pen, created trauma that outlived the war. The pen pistol never became a famous weapon. It killed relatively few people, dozens at most, perhaps 100 or two across the entire war. Compare that to the millions killed by rifles, artillery, and bombers, and the pen pistol seems almost irrelevant. But relevance isn't measured only in body count. The pen pistol achieved something more subtle and perhaps more valuable. It proved that British agents could carry lethal weapons into the heart of Nazi Germany, past every security measure right into Gestapo headquarters itself. It turned the most mundane object, a writing instrument, into a symbol of threat. It made German interrogators fear the pens on their own desks. It transformed everyday professional equipment into potential assassination tools. The pen pistol was psychological warfare disguised as a firearm. Every German officer who examined a suspect's pen with paranoid intensity, every interrogator who confiscated and destroyed dozens of harmless pens, every security measure implemented to counter fountain pen guns, these were victories even when the pen pistol never fired a shot. Station I understood something fundamental about covert warfare. The threat of a weapon can be as powerful as the weapon itself. By creating a firearm disguised as a fountain pen, they forced German counterintelligence to suspect every pen, examine every writing instrument, waste time and resources on a threat that was rare but impossible to ignore. And when pen pistols were actually used, in those desperate moments when agents had no other option, they sometimes enabled escapes, sometimes bought crucial seconds, and sometimes gave captured agents one final act of defiance before the inevitable end. Was it a great weapon? No. It was too limited, too weak, too unreliable for that title. Was it an important weapon? Absolutely. Because it existed at the intersection of engineering cleverness and psychological warfare, combining both into something that was more than the sum of its parts. So why did this harmless British fountain pen fire bullets at point-blank range? Because sometimes a pen needed to be mightier than the sword, and definitely deadlier than it looked. Because in the world of espionage and covert operations, appearances are everything, and nothing appeared more harmless than a fountain pen. Until it killed you. From fountain pens that fire bullets, to bicycles that explode, to rats packed with explosives, Britain's secret weapons prove that in war, nothing is what it seems. Keep watching World War II Weapons for more incredible stories of ingenuity, deception, and deadly innovation. Subscribe now. The next weapon might be hiding in plain sight. From fountain pens that fire bullets, to bicycles that explode, to rats packed with explosives, Britain's secret weapons prove that in war, nothing is what it seems. Keep watching World War II Weapons for more incredible stories of ingenuity, deception, and deadly innovation. Subscribe now. The next weapon might be hiding in plain sight.